This is Rebecca Howell
and Marty McKenna, and together we're Valley Road.
with John Broughton on Retrospectives on KC Radio 97.7 FM.
Mountain to forest, it turned to tinder.
Yeah, all right. So just to begin, can you give us both a rundown of what you were both doing musically before you teamed up as a duo?
Well, personally, I was, I'm a sheep farmer, got a bit of a family as well, but, I grew up singing with my dad. He's a bit of a songwriter and a singer, and I just sort of grew up, he sort of did a lot of local performances, and yeah, I kind of used to join him on stage a bit, and yeah, before the Valley Road thing, I'd often just perform alone or with my dad, or sometimes with Beck. We did do a lot of performances before we sort of officiated the Valley Road duo.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
similarly, I suppose I did a bit of solo stuff before. I grew up singing in choirs and things, and just always loved singing. And then I sort of did the, indie Melbourne bands thing in the 2000s, and then as did you. We were probably in the same circles, but we didn't know each other. And then it was about around 2012 we met and realised that our voices worked really well together, and started kind of singing together on and off. Marty would say, I'm doing this show every now and then. Do you want to come and join me? Or we'd get asked to do something. So it was pretty sporadic up until recently. Yeah. But always been really enjoyable.
Is your memory pretty strong of that first time you harmonised together? Was it a perfect harmonious match right from the beginning, or did it take a bit of tweaking?
It was pretty good, yeah. So we sort of had this little community choir, like just with friends, and I think one time either there wasn't many people there, or maybe it was afterwards, we sort of just tried something, just the two of us, and it was.
I think it was halfway away the first time.
Yeah, I think it was something like.
We're like looking for something we could both sing a bit of, and we started singing it, and I think we're both just like,
it was. It was definitely kind of like there from the start.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So what about for both of you, your initial love of music? Was it through family influences? I think, Marty, you've already mentioned your dad. Yeah,
I mean, Dad was definitely a big influence, but my mum had a great record collection. She was really into the sort of folk sort of scene, I guess. Lots of Dylan, lots of Peter, Paul and Mary, and that sort of stuff. That was my mum's kind of influence. But yeah, I mean, everyone in my family, I've got 3 siblings, and they're sort of all kind of semi-musical. There's piano players and singing and stuff. So it was always a bit happening in the house. So yeah.
Whereas mine wasn't really like that at all. I'm the only one, like really within my the household I grew up in, I'm the only musical one. However, I didn't grow up with my dad, and he's super musical. So that's interesting. There's maybe some genetic element there. But certainly my mum loved music, and had a decent record collection, not like your parents, but it's probably some of those like 60s singer-songwriter influences for me, like Joni Mitchell and Carole King and that sort of stuff. And more recently I've got more further, I suppose, into folk music. But yeah, that was kind of the Beatles, like that was big, huge, I think, in both of our households.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you remember
solid foundations. Sorry.
You were a member of the Australian Girls Choir, I believe.
Yeah. So I've just always loved singing since I was a kid, and I remember finding out about that, and Mum sort of saying, "Oh, this might be something that you'd be interested in doing." And I don't know how old I was. I think I was maybe about 10. But I could already sing harmony, like it just always came really naturally to me. And so, but it was definitely great at kind of building those skills. I'm still not good at sight reading, which was kind of a requirement there, but yeah, definitely helped hone my ear for harmony, I think.
So are there any standout lessons you learned in those days that through that experience with the choir that you've applied to your life today as an independent musician?
That's a good question. I guess it's something about being able to blend your voice with other people's voices, and moderate how you sing with other people. My friend Jane made a comment the other day. She said, "Oh, you're very easy to sing with." And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking that's probably because of the choir thing, that you learn when to project more, or if you're trying to stand out in a solo or something, but you also learn when to pull back. Yeah.
Now, Marty, your publicity blurb states that your first singing audience were the sheep on your family farm. So if we were to talk to young Marty back then chasing the sheep around, would he be telling us about ambitions to one day sing professionally?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think maybe. I think he would have changed his mind daily, probably. But I definitely, I always love doing it. When I'm singing, it's just, it's just a great place to be singing, and so yeah, probably, maybe. I'm not sure. It's a good question.
It's kind of one of those things you don't. Sometimes when you're a kid, you don't even know that that's a thing.
Yeah, I guess, and
In a way.
and having been brought up in sort of a semi-musical kind of house, it was just always there. It's just another aspect of life. So yeah, yeah. But
were there any other names in contention, or was it always going to be Valley Road?
We spent ages thinking about a name.
It was tough. Yeah,
it was tough, but.
Yeah.
So Valley Road is a road just near here that I drive along to get to Marty's place, or he drives along to get to mine. And I remember when you told me about Valley Road, and you were like, "Oh, I can't believe you go the main road. You got to go Valley Road.
You got to go that one, yeah.
Because it's a really beautiful back road. And so it kind of became a bit of a thing. And then when we were looking for a name, I did mention that I think earlier on, and we were like, "Oh, maybe," and then it just grew on us, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it felt more and more right, felt more us.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether you're aware of it. I'm sure you probably are aware of it, but during my research for this, I found there was another Valley Road.
Yes.
Acoustic duo in the UK that do covers. Did you? Were you aware of them before you named yourselves? Or
yeah.
I mean, we looked up Valley Road.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know. It felt different.
Yeah.
So we've thought, oh, that's all right, but I don't know.
Pretty much every name you look at, someone's got it these days.
Someone's got it somewhere, yeah.
And I think because they're not doing originals, they're not putting out albums and things like that. It's, we sort of felt like, it's probably okay.
Just an amazing coincidence. They're also a duo.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, two guys though. So
yeah.
Well, I guess that's something about a valley, is it's between two hills, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Never thought of that.
Hadn't thought about that.
Now, your connection with Rod McCormick, who produced the album, came about as a result of an award that you both received. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we were lucky enough to receive a Troubadour Foundation award. And the Troubadour Foundation is a philanthropically funded organisation that does give out these awards to sort of help promote sort of up-and-coming folk artists, which we were lucky enough to be one of them. It was sort of came about, I mean, obviously they enjoyed what we did, but it was a bit of luck involved too. We were sort of a late call-up to a festival that Andrew Patterson runs. Andrew Patterson used to have a sort of famous venue in Melbourne called the Troubadour, and so he has a vineyard up the road, and he has this yearly folk festival, and he called me up the day before he was having this festival, and we just sung at a wedding, and someone had pulled out due to COVID, and I was like, oh yeah, we can take the slot, and we did, and they really liked it, and they gave us the award, which was great. They sent us up to Rod on the Central Coast, and we were a bit unsure about how it was all going to go down. It's a delicate space, the recording studio, and you don't know how people are going to handle you. And so there was a bit of anxiety attached to it, but Rod was just so beautiful.
He was a dream.
It was great to work with. He's obviously just extremely talented and skilled, but he was great. I loved working with Rod.
Yeah, same. He made us feel very comfortable. I think he really enjoyed the music, which really helped, and he really got on board with it and was just super generous and continues to be really generous and really, supporting us and what we're doing. And we're really, really fortunate.
So were you planning to record something anyway? Will we still be talking about this album now?
Yeah.
We talked about it, but I don't know, just knowing me, we probably wouldn't have. I was always like, oh, it's tough. I've got, kids and a farm, and I felt, but it
And
was
it's a big
probably,
financial commitment to do
yeah. I
something
mean, we
like that.
definitely would have made out of afford to record with Rod.
No.
So that was very helpful. But
It was kind of funny though, because a few weeks before, I had just started saying to Marty, oh, because we were really loving it. We'd been singing a bit more regularly, and we were both like, oh, gee, this is great. Like, we love singing together, and we're good friends. And so, I said to Marty, I was like, oh, maybe we should take this a bit more seriously. Think about putting ourselves out there as something.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, maybe.
Yep.
And then next minute, literally a couple of weeks later, we got this award completely out of the blue.
And the
I was
ball
like,
was
well,
rolling.
it's happening.
Yeah, and it's been good. It's been
Yeah.
I'm happy with the result, and I'm happy
Yeah.
that it's all happened like that. It's yeah.
Sometimes
Is
you
there
just
anything Rod conveyed to you right at the very beginning in the planning stages that convinced you straight away that he was the right man for the job, regardless of being matched up with him by that award?
Yeah. So I hadn't met him before, and I knew he was a nice guy, but I guess in the studio.
Well, even when they had the Zoom call.
I don't know if it was any. I mean, we gave him some reference material, and he really liked that, so that was a good sign. But I guess it was more gradual for me. He was just his gentle way and his very encouraging demeanor.
Yeah,
it kind of after the first day, we were like, oh wow,
this is great.
This is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
The press release states his less is more approach. And that certainly does come across that way. I gather you're both intent on letting the songs stand on their own merits and not be overdressed, and that's certainly what he's achieved.
Definitely.
Yeah. That was, I think, that was a consistent thing with the references that we gave him and the music that we mostly like. That it's pretty honest, and there's not too much trickery involved, or
it was always a really great conversation around, what do you hear on this? And we'd say, oh, maybe some mandolin or whatever it was, and he'd kind of give us a few different options in terms of style, and sometimes the ideas wouldn't work, and he was happy with that. He was like, yeah, no worries. And,
yeah, there was the odd time when we were just like, he was like, yeah, I think that's good, and we were like, it's just doesn't feel quite right for us, and he totally respected that.
It's just very easy.
Yeah. It's an intense thing to do, but it was, for what it is, it was.
Yeah,
he made it very easy.
The songs are strong. They don't require overdressing, really, do they? Wind Blew West. You chose that as the first track to release out there to the public. Was there anything in particular that stood out about that song that made it the obvious choice?
I think it was probably, well, there was a lot of encouragement from Rod on that front, probably because it's got the most production on it, actually, and it kind of sounds maybe the fullest, and he thought that might work well for radio. None of it's super, radio oriented, but it's in the spectrum of those songs, that one's probably the most, maybe.
Yeah. It's a song inspired by a family situation of yours.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a true story about my mum. So it's about really kind of a snapshot of when my dad left when I was very young, and so it's a very personal song, but it's been a really kind of interesting process getting used to playing it over the years, and my mum getting used to hearing it, and now it's out in the world and sort of been a little bit healing as well, I think.
Does she feel differently about the song from when she first heard it to now that it's out there in the world, as you say?
Yeah, I think so. I think she's really proud of it. And I think because I often talk about, it's really about her courage more than anything. So, because she's a really brave woman and had to go it alone, and, so I think that aspect of it has resonated more over time, whereas initially I think she just found it really hard to hear because it brought back a lot of memories.
Yeah.
We'll
talk about the sequencing of the tracks on the album. I noticed a pattern. It's one track where Marty's voice is the prominent one, and the next track it's Beck, and it seems to go that way pretty much through the album. Was that intentional or just pan out that way?
it kind of was a bit intentional.
Yeah, I think we tried lots of different
Yeah.
ways, and it
Yeah.
sort of just felt right that way in the
Yeah,
end, I think.
I think it did fall that way a little bit,
Mm.
and then we might have thought, oh, this is kind of how it's going, because I think the first sort of maybe half dozen or so was where we wanted them anyway, and then we were
Yes.
like, oh,
And then we realized,
this is how it's going.
There's a pattern here.
This,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
And it kind of worked, and I think because it just keeps it kind of interesting, I think, for the ear
Hmm.
when it's not staying in one mode for too long.
Yeah.
So as we sort of went through, I think, listening through, we were like, actually, yeah, that
Yeah.
works. Yeah.
It's definitely not how we do a live performance.
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask that. Okay.
Yeah, well, I guess it's always a bit different, but we do use quite a few different guitar tunings, so that comes into play when we're playing live. We try not to bounce around too much. Once you're in one tuning, it's kind of like, all right, let's do a few songs here, and yeah.
There's a lovely arrangement of the Mark Seymour Penn's song, When Will You Fall For Me, which, of course, was made famous by Vicar and Linda Bull. A very different arrangement to how we know it. Tell us how that all came together. Who was responsible for that?
I mean, that's a song I've always liked, and I think maybe I did it solo, slowed down, and then it was a song that we sung together early on. So we've been singing it together for probably 10 years.
Okay.
And
Like
it
that.
just it's just a great song to sing, and it's a really well written song, and it's just a lot of fun to sing. We use all our breath, push it out, and we
get really lost in it.
We do get lost in it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emotion in the song, and we try and convey that. And sometimes playing it live can take it out of you, but it's just such a great feeling. Yeah, I love it.
When we hit those big notes in the bridge, it's just
it's very satisfying.
Yeah.
Oh, the song takes on a whole new identity, being stripped down and slowed down.
Yeah,
brings
it does.
out the heartbreak, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It has a different feel. Yeah.
Another standout track is 1982. Now, neither of you look old enough to be born in 1982. Oh, he was he? Okay.
Yeah.
But you're
I know, I
looking
was
after
already
yourself. You look after yourself well there, Marty. Must be all that chasing the sheep around.
Yeah, wow. Thanks.
Tell us the backstory of that song anyway.
Well, that's just I guess, that particular year was a pretty tough year in this part of the world for the farming community, and, huge droughts. I mean, even for people in Melbourne, I often hear stories about the huge wall of dust that hit Melbourne, and, so it kind of just hints at a few of those things, and hearing about it when people find out you're born in that year, they go, oh yeah, I remember that, and and then often if we get another drought, it's like, oh, this is like, I do hear that this year's kind of like like that year, and I guess it's experiencing those events is kind of part of farming too, these droughts and things like that. So it's sort of got snapshots of a few different events around farming and around drought and around that particular year.
Tell us about Gabby Blissett's involvement in the album. I believe her parts were all added via a Zoom link.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we were super lucky that Rod knows Gabby and has worked with her before. And so when we were talking about different options for bringing in another instrument, we were quite keen on having some fiddle. He suggested a few different names, some who were based in the US, some big names, and we're like, oh, that sounds really cool. But then he was also like, well, there's also this amazing young fiddle player. She's based in Newcastle. She plays with the Bushwhackers, and he was like, we could do a day with her and see what happens. And so we thought, that sounds like the way to go, because we also wanted to have sort of input and for it to be a bit collaborative. Whereas if it had been the other options, that was more like you send it to someone in the US and they come up with something, and what you get is what you get a little bit.
Yeah.
Which was less appealing to us, I think.
So we had an epic day. It was a huge day. I had to leave early, I think. You
left in just before the last song, I think.
Without me. Just on Zoom, we were down here, and obviously they were up there. But Yeah, she was just a trooper. She was so good, and just yeah, she's just a great fiddle player. She
Yeah.
really is. Huge talent. Yeah, I'm really impressed with what she did for us.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
an outstanding contribution. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were really lucky. We did a little tour to Sydney recently, and played, and Rod came and joined us for some shows, and Gabby joined us for a show as well. She's in a duo called Wicker Suite as well with her partner Liam. And they came and opened the show, and then
Yeah, and she got up.
she got up and played with us.
Yeah, it was really good.
It was
That was our first time meeting her. You know,
Yeah.
in person. So,
In person, yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
it was really fun.
yeah.
Now, I don't have any songwriting credits in front of me. I'm just wondering how the whole process works between the two of you. Do you pitch ideas to each other? How does it generally work?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's something that's probably evolving over time. So this album, like, obviously this is our only album, but this album was, we did bring our own songs largely. I think we sort of
mostly we had played them together in some form.
So yeah, but we might have contributed little bits here and there on each other's songs.
And then there were a few that were written for the album.
Yeah.
There's a few that I kind of brought along that I was writing with Marty in mind, whereas that wasn't the case with the previous ones because they were our individual songs.
Yeah.
And then we turned them into ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and then increasingly we're sort of doing a bit more collaboration and so influencing probably how the songs are shaping up.
Yeah, it may look different next time.
Yeah.
Also for this album, when I found out we were making an album, I contacted a good friend of mine, Lehman B. Smith, and I commissioned a song. I said, "Could you write a song for us?" And so he wrote "Heave Way," Those Lonely Nights, which is the final track on the album. So yeah, a friend of mine, Lehman Smith, is a great Melbourne songwriter. Yeah.
Pretty cool to have a song written for us.
Yeah.
I reckon.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually it was interesting when we won the award to do the album, we were probably doing quite a few covers in our set at that point.
Yeah, we always had our own songwriting going on individually, but yeah.
But then, so when we sort of started thinking about what would be on the album, there were a few more covers in the mix potentially. And Rod, we sent him all the different things we had in mind, and he was like, "Oh, definitely go with the originals. Like, the more originals, the better." The only one that made it through was the "When Will You Fall for Me," because he was like, "Wow, your version of that is really different, and you're really bringing something different to that song." So he really encouraged us to lean into our own songs, our original stuff, which was great. Yeah.
Another standout song is "The Way the Sun Goes Down," which I believe was inspired by leaving the city behind and heading to where you are now. Tell us about writing that song. Was it a tough choice to make that move?
Well, not really, because I had lived up this way before. So back when we first met and started singing together, I was living in Kyneton at the time, but had moved back to the city and lived there for 6 or 7 years, including during the first half of the COVID lockdowns. And I was living in an apartment in Footscray, which was pretty rough because I do feel like a country girl at heart, even though I grew up in the suburbs. So I found it pretty challenging being cooped up. And then, it was after moving back and really I've moved up near Castlemaine, that I was really reflecting on just how much I was appreciating being back in the wide open spaces and in the fresh air, and being a bit more in touch with the seasons and all of that I find so enriching. Yeah.
Do you think that your living environment can very much influence your work as a songwriter, the types of songs you're writing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I guess every writer's different, but I think I just write about what I know, like, and what you know is the things that you take in with your eyes every day. And
definitely.
You can. I mean, there are definitely songwriters that can, maybe they're a bit more imaginative than me, and they can sort of create worlds, and that's totally valid too. But I personally think, I need to draw upon the environment, that I live in.
And even just the fact that for me, living in a more natural environment, I'm less stressed, and so therefore more open to creativity and just a lot more inspired generally. So I think that's part of it too. But yeah, the landscape, I think, is a big theme in both of our writing.
Yeah.
The land and the landscape, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just a little question here for you both to talk each other, a chance to talk each other up before I let you go. What is it about the other that makes them, what qualities do they have that make them a perfect collaborator for you?
Oh, well, I mean, firstly, Beck is an amazing singer, and she's very good at harmony and, you know, picking out all the different options, and that's great. But I think probably number one is just we're just really good friends, and we get along very well, and we have you know, great discussions about different things, and I think it's just a sense of friendship.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. I think we just have a good rapport together where we can, I don't know, we don't have arguments and stuff generally, or if we get close to one, it's like we work it out. But also I think we're very, very respectful of each other, and I think Marty is a very kind person, and so kind and patient, so that really helps. And just, musically, I think he is an absolute endless well of knowledge about music, seemingly, and gives me a lot of inspiration, which helps fuel my writing. So I really appreciate that. And then, it's just his voice. I mean, he's just got one of the best voices I know, and it just works with mine. So, you know, and also just an amazing songwriter. Like, this guy's lyrics and just songwriting generally, I find really inspiring. So, very lucky.
Beautifully answered. Yep. So what are the plans going forward with like touring the record?
Touring, you mean? Like,
touring. Well,
we've been doing it
locally and outside of Victoria, even.
Yeah, definitely would like to.
We want to do more.
Want to do more of it. It's I
guess we're kind of just open to opportunities at the moment. We haven't tried to line too much up. We sort of got to go with the busy periods of the farm, and there's family life to consider and all of that. So we're not really sort of going out and doing, you know, massive tours and things like that. It's more like when we get an opportunity to go play somewhere, we'll kind of, so when we went to Sydney, for example, we got asked to go up and play a gig there. So we did a few shows around that, and made a sort of long weekend of it. And so there'll probably be more of that happening. Like, we've been talking about going to Adelaide, Tassie, maybe go up to Sydney again.
Yeah, and I guess just applying for various folk festivals, and seeing what happens there. We just played Malden Folk Festival recently, which was great.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, so that kind of thing, I guess, in the immediate future is what we're going for.
I think we both love the music. Like, part of what we love about it is the community around folk music, and so it's sort of the experiences that you have through that more than necessarily just playing lots of shows. It's like we want them to be the right shows. Yeah,
that's right.
Where
we've done a lot of we've played a lot in the last 12 months, and I think we're figuring out the kind of shows we'd like to play, and you know, it does change our set list depending on where we're playing. You know, like if we've got a good listening audience, which is the dream, you know, then it brings out the side that we like of our music.
I suppose that more gentle side that, you know,
we've got a few house concerts coming up, and and they'll be great because, you know, we can play our
we can be self-indulgent. We've got a captive audience, and no one's, you know, chatting in the background. It's just like,
and clanking glasses and
exactly. That's probably not our ideal scenario, just because what we do is kind of subtle, and you can miss it if you're in a noisy room.
Exactly. So it's a quality of gig rather than a quantity. That's your priority.
Definitely.
So
definitely. That's where we're at. Yep.
Fantastic. Look, Beck, Marty, it's been wonderful to meet you. Is that rare
Likewise.
feeling you get when you hear an artist for the first time and they just blow you away? That happened the first time I heard your record. It's fantastic, and congratulations on a mighty debut.
Yeah,
Thank you so
John.
much.
Yeah, we're
Thanks,
really
Nathan.
proud of it. And
Yeah.
we appreciate your support.
Yeah.
No problem. I look forward to catching you live sometime.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
I'll have to play some shows over your way.
No, look, I'm actually contemplating trekking up to Castlemaine to see you in a couple of weeks.
Should we
So,
come?
Cool.
Yes,
Yeah.
Bridge Hotel,
Yeah, the
10th
Bridge
of
Hotel,
December.
yep, I'm going to see what I can do about that.
Excellent. We'd love to
Okay.
meet you in person.
Great to meet you too. All the best.
Thanks, John.
I'll let you know when all this is going to air too.
Okay.
Oh, thanks.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.